All right, looks like we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar with Atombeam Technologies. I'm Nathan Disk and I'm happy to be here with you all as your host. For those new to Atombeam, they're pioneering two transformational technologies, Nerpac, which is a radically efficient and secure data compaction technology, and PCM, the persistent cognitive machine, a groundbreaking AI architecture capable of continuous learning with a fraction of the computational costs of today's traditional LLMs. We're joined today by Atombeam's chairman and CEO, Charles Yeomans, who will walk us through the latest commercial traction, defense initiatives, and research breakthroughs, including developments tied to AI, data infrastructure, and even quantum computing. But before we begin, a quick reminder, Atombeam is currently testing the waters for a potential future raise on Start Engine. That means they're accepting non-binding reservations from those who want to express interest early and stay up to date. You can learn more about that at startengine.com/offering/Atombeam. Again, your reservation is not a commitment to invest and no money is being accepted at this time, but it's a great way to stay up to date. So with that, we will start with a presentation from Charles, then leave ample time at the end for live audience Q&A. Charles, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll pass it over to you.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, Nathan. I appreciate the opportunity to do this and get on and talk to all these great investors we have. I mean, really, it's, you guys are the reason we're here and the reason we can move this really incredible pair of technologies forward and more to come even on that. So it's pretty cool and exciting. Really appreciate the time that you take to come on and listen to the talk. So I want to make sure that everybody can hear and see and all that, but I'm assuming you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin up a deck that we put together for this. I'm going to spend, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so talking about it, and we'll take questions. So that's the plan. All right. Okay. So can we see, Nathan? Can you see my screen?
Can't see your screen yet. Oh.
Okay. Let me know.
Oh, there it's loading up. Okay. I think we're good now.
All right, good. All right. So here's a really quick overview of what we're going to talk about here. And first, we're going to talk about Nerpac, which we just released a new version. It's really got lots of interest, and we're going to talk a little about who's interested and why. Then we're going to talk about some of the stuff we have going on with the DoD or DOW now. What's going on with the PCM right now. We got some pretty cool stuff going on there. And just a quick thing on our patent count. 400 patents is in sight, which is pretty stunning for a company, like our size. Most of the time, for a company like us, you'd be looking at one or two instead of 400. So first, talking about Nerpac. So what we've done historically, and we released, I don't know, early this year, was a version of Nerpac that addressed SAS, that worked on a SAS, that is to say, that worked in the cloud. So the way it would work is if you had a thing that was needed to have compaction, you would send the data to the cloud, to our cloud, from your device, and our technology would be, our software technology would be on your device. It would go to the cloud, our cloud, and then we'd send it on to their cloud. People didn't want that. What they wanted was to have it entirely in their own system. So it never went to our cloud. It always went to theirs. So, and that we'd heard from people that they wanted the SAS, but they didn't want the SAS. So whatever. Bottom line is we have remade Nerpac and repackaged it. It's got the same idea of it reduces the amount of data that needs to move from A to B to get the same information from A to B. So what we did was we repackaged it and we released it just last week, the final but it's never final, right, with software. But the on-prem release, this means on-premise, that means behind their firewall. So that was released last week. There were significant performance improvements, including 10 times faster building code books. It integrates deep into their system. It's a whole different ballgame from the old one, which was at a higher level, a later level in terms of where the compute was in their software stack. This one is much deeper. And so it makes it more efficient. It can add encryption. It can do all these really cool things all at once. And so what reaction has been very positive. So I'm going to talk about the smart meter thing in a little more detail here in a minute, but we have a lot of pilots that are about to launch or launching. One is a big cybersecurity company in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There's a few things in Saudi Arabia. There's also one in Australia that I haven't added yet because it's new here. Another cloud infrastructure company, pretty big company in Kingdom, South Arabia, KSA. There's another cloud infrastructure company. There's an oil drilling company. They optimize the way oil gets drilled. Ericsson has a customer testing. So suddenly, boom, everybody's excited about this. And it's now the way they want to see it. And so talking specifically about the smart meter thing, we're especially keen on this. And the reason is the company that we've been working with on an agreement, and right now the ball is in their court. They generated something, we commented, we went back to them. So anyway, it's an agreement in the works. It's not like, who knows what's going to happen. Very confident that this will happen. And I'm hoping to get it done either late this week or early next. I want to get it done before, the holiday. Anyway, it's a big deal because smart meters really need lots of bandwidth, not lots, but more than they can get. And it's a critical thing for utilities. Utilities, that's how they bill their customers. That's their revenue. If they get information from the smart meter says they use this much power, boom, that's how much now, in terms of how much they can bill their customer. And therefore it's mission critical to those guys. And they want to know a lot more than the very, very basic information they can get now. And the smart meters can send a lot more. They just can't, they can generate it, but they can't send it. And so what we can do is really transform the whole market here. It's a big thing. It's 1.5 billion, 2 billion meters. We're guessing. I mean, we haven't finally, got a final price on for how much we can charge. And it's going to vary. Sometimes it'll be low, sometimes it'll be higher. It depends on how much they're paying for their communication, whatever it is. But we think 3 cents a month a meter is a reasonable guess here. That would say this is a $500 million market for us. And this is just one fairly small market out of the big thing. Compared to something like oil and gas, it's small. And if you look at, where we fit in this thing, it's a $26 billion industry overall. So we would be adding just a little bit, a couple of percent, but they would get a ton out of it, all these advantages. So this looks to be really good. And these guys that we're working with, it's $300-400 million company. I can't remember exactly, but they're mid-sized player. But they want to distribute it. They want to sell it to their competitors. They have the inside game. It's exactly what we want to be doing. I mean, as opposed to us having to directly sell to customers, it's better if you got an insider selling to their industry. And they want to make it an industry standard, which I can't overstate how important that is. It's a big deal. They go in and they convince the industry to adopt it as a standard. That means that standardly, you would normally go out and use Nerpac every time you install a start meter. Big deal. So anyway, moving on, got to keep going here, talking about defense. So first is we just got this extension. I've mentioned this before in an update, but I want to emphasize it. We had $1.2 million contract. It got extended along with very few others with Space Force, $766,000 extension. And the reason they wanted it was because they recognized they need this technology to expand the effective bandwidth of their satellites. It's very big deal. So right now it's at a technology readiness level, TRL 6, which means it's been tested over commercial satellites, commercial networks, but it hasn't been tested over military networks, which means, in effect, for this purpose, military satellites. So those that's the intent, that come March, that's when they officially want to start it. They want to start testing Nerpac over their own satellites. That moves us into the next level, which is TRL 7. 7 means that anybody can deploy Nerpac who's in the military or even in the government generally anywhere they want, because it has a stamp of approval. So we get that, and then suddenly all these things we've been talking to and waiting and all that stuff, suddenly Nerpac is got the blessing, and somebody could just say, yeah, I want to use it, and they negotiate what the price is, as opposed to, I got to go through some kind of R&D phase. Nope, this is just deployable, paying. So, and another big deal in defense is we were just selected as a prime contractor for SHIELD, which is really the acquisition arm of Golden Dome, which everybody's called, knows. I think it's the shield that's supposed to cover the United States and prevent it from to stop missiles from landing in the United States. Contracts are going to be awarded starting, we think, nobody is official word, but we think next quarter. And we'll just get a call that says, okay, you're a prime, you alongside, guys like L3Harris and Lockheed and so forth. They will send us a request for us to respond. We respond, and boom, we've already gone through the competition phase. This is already competed, and therefore it's even possible we could get sole source, which is basically anybody who has a need for our stuff just doesn't even have to go through any process. They just say, okay, yeah, here's a contract. So these are both pretty big developments. And then, we're not stopping there. There's also focus here on other stuff. One is the F-47, the NGAD, the next generation air defense. And those are the new under development now fighter aircraft. And then there's also this thing called CCA, or Combat Collaborative Aircraft. What those are is basically drone formations that are controlled by an F-35 or an NGAD that can do all sorts of things and go places where you don't want to put a manned aircraft. We also have a proposal in front of DARPA for PCM, and we're working very hard, as a lot of you guys know, on this Navy demo. The Navy demo was supposed to happen in October originally, but as everybody knows, there was a shutdown, and now we're going to be rescheduling it. We plan for next quarter. We don't have a date yet, but we're using the time pretty effectively here to move forward with making this demo more robust, be able to do more things, look better, and all those things. So it's okay. It's not a bad thing that this got delayed. We're actually not unhappy about it. So with that, let's talk about PCM. So quickly on what it is. So instead of doing what other AI does, the way it does it is completely different. It doesn't use the same basic idea, which are these things called transformers, which are getting to be recognized that they are getting to be too much to scale. You got to build too many data centers. We don't have all the power you need and all that stuff. So, and what this does instead is it says, okay, if we can use geometry instead of transformers, what does that mean? That means that in 1,000 dimensions, so really packed together, you can have a thought, and the thought is the trajectory, the movement of between 2 points in this super high dimensional space. It's pretty exotic stuff, but it does work. We have it up and running. It works. And so, and the thing is, there is a way in the human brain that this same thing happens. Human brains have neural nets, just like a transformer, but they also have these geometric structures that does the higher level stuff. When you really think deeply about something, you're engaging what is in effect geometry. And the results of this is, because it's so super concentrated, it doesn't get to be very big. Probably 250 gigabytes would be as much as it ever gets. It reduces the amount of computation you need because, for one thing, it can learn. And once it learns something, it's able to access a cache, a memory, a thought about something, and not have to go back and recompute it, which is what you do with most AI. You have to, with most AI, you have to, it goes through and does exactly the same thing. You could ask the same question 1,000 times. The 1,000th time, it does the same thing as it did the first time. So really, really not very efficient. So, and the other big thing is that once one PCM learns something, it can pass along what it learns to another PCM. And it's not a fact, it's a learning thing, it's an understanding. It's hard to get all this across, but basically the thing to think about with this is like, what is the difference between this and what we have right now with LLMs? LLMs work on a basis of the same, that you could do the same thing over and over and over, and it never learns anything. It doesn't get any better. The only way it gets better is if you train it again, which is you go back and you build this they have these massive data centers that train. That's all they do. But it can't learn through some experience. It can't get better on the basis of interacting with humans or data or, being told something. It has to be trained again. And a human, however, is able to learn things and get better over time. And, you get more knowledge and you get more things that you understand. And the amount of power you apply to a human brain is about 20 watts, which is 500 million times less than how much LLMs use nowadays. So, and so that tells you right now is like, there needs to be something that new that takes over here. And a lot of the key people in LLMs who invented them in many cases think they're topping out. They're done. They're amazing, but they can't get that much better because the theory is, saying it would take 1 million times more compute to double the accuracy of them, which is just incredibly bad, scaling. Whereas PCM, when we're going to talk about it here, logarithmically scales. That is, because it's learning, it doesn't need nearly as much. It doesn't need to grow as much. It doesn't need to be retrained. It just learns as it goes, and then it applies what it learns as you go along, just like the human brain does. So it's an amazingly different thing. And the way it works is something called a manifold. So all these things that get injected into the manifold, that in this core thing, like an interaction with a human, data coming in from a machine, some video, whatever, all those things impact the manifold. And the manifold, that's the core thinking part. And it changes, it alters its geometric structure on the basis of learning. And then that impacts what it thinks when it impacts like a future decision, in the sense of like, okay, an LLM, you could ask it the same question over and over and over. It's not impacted by any interaction that it's had. This is getting impacted every time. So, for example, if you wanted an LLM to learn what a golden retriever was, you'd have to give it like literally a million pictures of golden retrievers, as well as your write-ups. This is what a golden retriever is and what it does and all that stuff. Whereas the PCM, the very first time it sees a picture of a golden retriever, it's going to have a sense of, that's like a dog, but it's certain kinds of characteristics. And then it gets another picture and it gets it more refined, just like a human does. So you can see how enormously impactful this would be. So it solves the basic issues that impact, that are really out there impacting the value and use of AI. So all these things are impacting this manifold: sensors, how somebody interacts with it, databases. We can use an LLM to say, I need to understand this, golden retrievers better. And so it could go back and say, because I'm getting a lot of questions about golden retrievers. So it goes in and does its thing and comes back and asks an LLM, please describe the eating habits of golden retrievers. And comes back and says, okay, and that feeds in the manifold. Now the manifold's learned something. So there's all these things that impact it. And so in the way it works, sort of, this is a visual representation. The neural net that you find in transformers, in LLMs, is on the left. PCMs are on the right. PCMs, those concentrated little groups there, are things that are closely related. Labradors, golden retrievers, and whatever in one area, and another area might be how to build an airplane or whatever. And so there's not that much connecting those two groups of things, but you might be able to try to make some connection that doesn't make sense normally. But you say, maybe I should look at this and try to figure it out. So anyway, so this gives you a sense of what the differences are. But it really comes down to, what are the differences in practical application? So LLMs and small models, which are basically boiled down LLMs, and agentics. Agentics are just a script that's put on top of an LLM that enables it to automatically do things with the LLM. But they tend to be pretty brittle, because if you don't anticipate something that happens in the script, then it doesn't work, it breaks. So it's kind of an artificial thing, but it can work very well, but it's still not sort of natively learning things and understanding things. None of the things do except PCM. And so PCM is permanently altering its understanding and its memory, and it learns things. And the learning is how what changes the memory. We expect too that it's going to have a very minimal error rate. You need to prove that, but that would be a consequence of saying how likely is it that golden retrievers understand how to build airplanes? Very unlikely. And so that makes it very curved. The curvature between those two things is great, which means it has to apply more compute, which means it says, probably not. And so it throws out that possibility. Whereas it might, but it allows it to think through what are interesting things that might actually make sense and don't appeal to you right off the top of your head. So in other words, it's not throwing out things automatically, but it's thinking about things that seem unlikely. The things that seem unlikely are the things that are like hallucinations. Now, I think hallucinations are going to get more under control with LLMs and some of the small models. But in any case, it's a big deal that we can be able to address that right up front. And the compute, we think, will be at least 85% less because it's going to learn things. And especially after it's matured. And say you have an LLM that a doctor is using that who's a researcher in some sort of brain disease or something. That model has that PCM instance he has is going to get better and better and better and faster and use almost no power to produce results because it's looking at things it already understands. And so it doesn't have to go out and access an LLM very much of the time, or access the web, or access whatever, or think a lot about it. And finally, the size. 250 gigabytes would be a big organization. We believe, this is what the math says, we believe it's a big organization over a long period of time, like IBM, might take 250 gigabytes over a decade. So most of the time, they're going to be way smaller than that, a few gigabytes, maybe 100 tops for most circumstances. And as you can see from that quote from Sam Altman down there, this isn't the model, and he's talking about the release of ChatGPT 5. This is the model that continuously learns as it's deployed from new things it finds, which is something to me that feels like AGI. So we think this is the PCM is the future. And we think that when guys like Sam Altman understand what we've got here, they're going to be very interested in talking to us. So quickly on this Navy idea, the live demo we thought was going to get moved to November. I forgot to change this, but it's actually, going to be a very sophisticated thing now. And we think impressive. A lot of work is being done on it still right now. It was in good shape before, but now it's getting really great. So quickly on other things we can address with PCM. It could change, for example, think about, just to pick one of these, like healthcare. You had a doc in Tokyo who's noticed certain disease characteristics, and he's a researcher, and he's found correlations, and he's found something that can help symptoms or even cure something, some exotic, hardly ever seen thing. And then his PCM federates, that is to say, it talks to the a PCM instance of a doc in Iowa, and the doc in Iowa is looking at this unique case, and he doesn't know what this thing is, but his PCM has federated with this doc in Tokyo, and between the two things, they've understood something, and he's able to figure out he was able to diagnose it and actually think about what are the potential therapies he could apply. Think about the power of that. If you were to say, apply that to lots of things, industrial things and financial things and all these other things that could be out there that could change how global intelligence works. All these things collaborating and talking to each other and becoming experts in different things, but sharing that expertise. It's not sharing data in the sense of anything that you think of HIPAA or anything like that, but is sharing an understanding and a curvature in geometry. It's kind of wild. So, and a lot of people have asked me about this. So, I put out a very sort of vague, intentionally vague update about quantum and the potential impact of some research. And I want to emphasize this is research and it's early. And I don't want to say nobody should invest on the basis of this, but it's really cool. And I like to tell everybody about what we're working on. So what's the problem with quantum? Quantum computing, the problem is you get a logical qubit, the things that are the core thing. That's just it's a particle that is being used to for the core computing that is going on. But what happens is it gets hammered with all the electromagnetic radiation that's running around all the time. Wi-Fi, your phone, just photons, everything. And it's getting hit with heat, with any kind of thermal radiation, pushing on it. So these things have to be maintained at just slightly above absolute zero, millikelvin temperatures. And so what do? Even when you do that, you end up with it getting totally messed up all the time. It's called decoherence. These little, logical qubits need thousands of physical qubits, of error correcting qubits to correct the one logical one. And so you get a scaling problem, because how do you grow that? Well, I got to have thousands of error corrections for correcting qubits for every single one of my logical ones. It's really, really messy, and it's a problem. So you can't grow it past, 1,000 or so logicals. I don't know where they're at now, but it can't really scale very well. And so what can we do? We don't know. I can't tell you this is true because we haven't tested it, and we'd have steps to go before we can get there. And I just want to keep emphasizing that point. But this research that we've been doing on PCM has led us to some interesting physics. And the interesting physics says that there's a potential that we could stop this decoherence from happening. We could block the electromagnetic radiation and the thermal radiation, which makes it possible that we could stop the decoherence, which means that instead of having thousands of error correcting qubits, you might have just a few or one. We don't know. But if that is possible, that means that quantum could be maybe even room temperature. It's possible. It could be, even if that isn't true, it could be blocked from a lot of electromagnetic radiation, which would decrease dramatically the amount of error correcting qubits that you would need. So net it's a big potential. I mean, this could change the freaking world. So I want to mention it, but again, it's very much a research project, but it's really interesting, and I thought everybody'd like to hear it. So what do we really have today? Well, Nerpac, it's a real product, really released. Anybody can use it, and I think we're going to start seeing not only the couple of customers that are using it now, but we're going to see some good, robust honest to God, first it's going to be pilots mostly, right, in Q1. But I think it'll start to morph into being some really cool revenue coming in Q2. And it could be even sooner, but I think that's a reasonable guess. And then by mid-year, it should be really hitting stride. And PCM is the thing that really can change the world. It's, it addresses all the key issues in that are out there with current AI. It's still not a released product, and so you can't sort of say, okay, I want to see where your projections are and all that stuff. We still need to do a lot of work here, but we do have a working prototype. It needs a lot of refinement, and it needs work, and that's one of the things we're hoping when we work with the Navy, they'll help us on, and we think that's the case. But certainly somebody like DARPA or some of the national laboratories, there's a lot of potential there for interest from them in this technology. It addresses the key things that right now are just not possible with the current AI approaches. But so we think we have a lot of potential here. This could be a really big deal. But with that, I'll stop and let everybody ask some questions.
Yeah, so we're going to be accepting questions now. We'll take the next 20 minutes or so. So if you haven't already, please drop your questions in the comment box below, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. Let's see. Let's start with a couple of questions regarding the smart meters. We have a question: how many smart meters can be signed up in 2026, 2027? Maybe just if you want to dive in a little bit more deeply into the market size there and maybe the potential on that side of things.
So this company have 30 million smart meters now deployed. They think it can move pretty quickly on sort of like, so you got two sets, right? You got the existing install base, and then you have new ones. There's no reason why we couldn't address both. And so it would be a matter of saying they would be going to their customers, the utilities, and they're all over the world. India, Malaysia, US, a bunch of places. So they could go to all of those and say, hey, do you want to upgrade? Here's a software upgrade that would give you this and that. And then it'll cost you only this, which, again, we're trying to make it really cheap so they deploy a lot. We think that it's very possible. Oh, and I should say, and they want to put us they're the lead bidder, which they're pretty sure they're going to get for a European 8 million smart meter installation, which would start to roll out probably late next year. But they're in the final stages of the bidding process. So that would be 8 million meters. So that's just them. And then they intend to start reselling it to their competitors. Again, worldwide, there's 1.5 billion, 2 billion smart meters. Could we get, 5, 10 million? 5 million is maybe by the end of next year. I think it's not an unreasonable goal. I'm not saying it's going to happen, to be clear, but I think there's a decent chance we could hit that kind of number.
Awesome. And going along those lines, we have another question regarding the smart meters about if it would require replacement, or is this just a software upgrade to the existing?
Software upgrade.
Awesome.
All they do is they push out a software upgrade. That's it. Which is kind of cool when you think about it, because you could say, okay, I'm going to do this with 1 million smart meters. Okay, that's it. You push out a software update.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on. Grab some more questions. Let's see. So, how many Nerpac pilots can AB handle at a time? I guess how long does the typical pilot take, I guess?
Oh, it's going to vary. I would guess an average one might be a month to 2 months. It depends. It's not so much about the actual pilot as okay, sign an agreement, get this done, get that done, get the copy to them, do the test in the lab, and then do the pilot. It's not so much the time for the pilot, it's the preliminaries. Because, bottom line is that once they put it in the field, they see it work for a few weeks and, what's going to happen, right? So I would guess, a month to 2 months, maybe on a really long one, 3.
Awesome. Moving on, we got a few questions regarding PCM, and a lot of them around the timeline to launch. Do you have a timeline for the official launch of PCM, or maybe just a rough kind of estimate there?
Yeah, I mean, I can't be definitive, right? Because there's a lot of things that need to happen, and part of it is we have a really small team working on this. It's 4 people, but we just added a 5th. So, it's not like we're OpenAI with however many thousands of people working on ChatGPT, right? So my guess is like, well, put it this way: if we get accelerated by help, by either raising significant additional money so we can hire more people, or through some sort of collaboration with the National Lab, with the Navy, with somebody, then it's possible at least we get it released by the end of next year. Not saying we would, but what I'm saying is it's with early help and really putting our foot down to the pedal to the metal here. I think it's possible that it gets released end of next year, at least on a limited basis. And one of the things I love to do, and I've told the team I want to do this, is I want to make our investor base the guinea pigs. We have something like 10,000 investors, at least nine, some large number, but it's not so large that you wouldn't be able to, control that size of that group. It's not like, okay, so instead of just going out and getting, setting into the whole world, we get all these folks get a chance to try it, and hopefully not see a break. So
absolutely, yeah. Okay, we can move on. Is PCM strictly software, or is there a hardware component as well?
Strictly software. I would like to see, though, because it's so small and efficient, it's very possible that it could be something that goes into a single chip, a SoC, a system on chip, which has other things than just the basic chip. But to work with NVIDIA to make it into something that is deployable, so you just stick it on your board and you've got a full-blown AI sitting there on a chip on a board, and maybe with some RAM also, but even the whole thing could be built into one chip, which would just be incredible. So that but that's a whole separate thing. Software, yes, it's just software.
All right. We got another one. Is PCM in any way integrating or using Nerpac?
It can use, and this is a design thing down the road. The thinking is like, okay, it takes in stuff, as everybody was looking at, right? Sensor information. One of the things that we're building alongside it is something we call NERCOM 2. NERCOM 2 is kind of the visual cortex for PCM, but PCM also needs to be able to take in sensor data, other kinds of IoT type data. That there's no reason why that couldn't come in as Nerpac data, encoded with Nerpac, and with what we plan to be, give it random access and searchability. That would allow it to be used natively in its reduced form by PCM, making it more efficient, faster, blah, blah, blah.
Great. Let's see. Do you have an official launch? Okay. Are you accepting hands in or on support in the research and development? Maybe that's just relating to feedback, hands-on support. I know you talked about, potentially using your investor base as kind of a beta test.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, we will. Not yet, but it's too much. So Nerpac is too much of a, you got to be an engineer to really be able to install it and stuff. That's the way our customers want it. They, we were working to make it really simple push button, but the engineers want to get into it and understand it and implement it in their own particular environment. So that wouldn't be applicable. PCM, though, is something that could be applicable, and I'd love to get investors involved with it. I think it'd be really cool. And there's nothing like exposing a like no battle plan, survives contact with the enemy, right? And not that investors are the enemy in any sense. They are, though, people who going to go in and they're going to try it any which way, and they're going to break it, and things will go wrong, and then we figure things out before we put it out there. Boom.
Absolutely. Got a good one here. How does Atombeam address the current 2026-27 Ramageddon? In other words, the memory shortage due to AI data center expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just sheer scale, right? I mean, PCM doesn't need scale, and Nerpac hardly uses any RAM at all. I mean, it's, an average code book might be a megabyte. I mean, it's like, in computer terms, it's a minuscule. So, and PCM, super efficient. Yeah, we're working on GPUs. We're working on NVIDIA GPUs, but we don't have to. It's faster, but it's not essential. So I think a key point here, about just as a general theme with Atombeam stuff, is we like stuff that's really efficient and small and fast and all that. I mean, we don't have the money, to be brute force like LLMs. We're not going to be spending, $50 billion on data centers anytime soon, and we have no need to. And I think once some of these guys spending $50 billion on data centers look at PCM, they're going to go, whoa, maybe this 50 billion we're spending, we don't really need to spend it all, right? So, at any rate, I think it's going to have a real impact. But, just in general, no, I don't think the RAM thing is going to impact us any really significantly at all.
Great. So you note that one major smart meter company is evaluating Nerpac as a potential industry standard and may resell it. What would that mean for Atombeam's growth trajectory if formalized?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on how long it takes to get that process done, because usually it's not going to be like overnight. Don't expect it in Q1 or something like that. It's, with some luck, it happens next year. When, I don't know. But I'd be willing to bet, though, that once the other companies in the industry, because it has to have the support more than just this one company. It's got to have the support of the biggest players. But once they sort of see it and they realize we can make more money this way, that's how they're going to look at it. Then they're going to say, well, yeah, I mean, this needs to be an industry standard. It needs to be driven by economics. And that will determine also the speed with which it goes. So I think net, we're going to see it happen. I think it's really likely. I just don't know exactly how fast, but I think when those other industry players see how impactful it is and how this one company can get deals, can get big opportunities because of it, they're going to go, well, this really needs to be something we got to do. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay, on to, yeah. So got a question here about your Navy, the upcoming Navy demonstration. Can
Yep,
you tell me a little bit more about the Navy demonstration and what might you anticipate would be the next steps to come out of it?
sure. So anybody who's interested in seeing what it's going to look like should go and look at a video that's the Navy put on YouTube, which is called Sea Strike 2043. Again, Sea Strike 2043. If you go and look at that, the idea of that thing is the Navy has a vision for the command center of the future. So it shows an admiral in a situation room, or it's called a command information center, a CIC, and a carrier, directing his team and being guided by the AI. The AI they don't have. Nothing exists that can do the things that they want it to do. Except now we think PCM addresses that. We think PCM can change its approaches on the basis of a developing situation, which isn't possible with an LLM. So if you were to look at like that video and see what it is, you'll see what we plan to do. Like the guy who's the main guy for PCM was sitting in the room when they're showing us the videos. They had another one too. And he said, we can do that. That's the genesis of the whole demo idea. And so we built it. And now all we're doing is making it better, refining it, making it look nicer. But it's basically about an invasion by Red Force. It's Red Force, Blue Force is a standard military thing. Invasion by Red Force of some islands. And the Blue Force is defending the islands, and the Admiral is in the Blue Force. And so there's, the idea is to try to interdict that invasion. And that's what our demo is going to reflect as well, as the same basic scenario.
Awesome. That sounds super interesting. And going off that kind of the defense initiative with the Navy, as these defense interests accelerate, how do you think about balancing the commercial adoption of Nerpac with these government contracts?
Well, we have dedicated people. We have a small dedicated team. It's 2 people who address the defense stuff, and plus I supplement it. And we have on our board Rear Admiral Becker, who was in charge of the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, which is all the Navy's communication systems and intelligence systems. And so he's here with me. Actually, we're at a conference in Charleston, South Carolina. And Charleston is home to a big chunk of the Navy's communications. It's called NIWC LANT. So they're sponsoring this conference that we're out here for, and he's over at it right now. And I'm going to be joining him later. That is like, that whole thing supplements our core team. And we have another guy on our board whose name is John Rogers. John was a assistant secretary of defense. So we really got some real inside game going on here. And then on the commercial side, it's a whole different team. We have 2 direct sales guys, and we have a business development professional. And I just happened to meet, he happened to be here this week too, with the BD guy. And so I spent, some time with him yesterday. We organized things. It's very focused on sort of these, we really want big opportunities. I mean, we're willing to take the smaller ones now, but we want those to become automated, simple. You go to a marketplace and you download it, you install it, and it's all very automated. For now, though, we really want to get some big numbers on the board. How do you get those? By going to the big players who have lots and lots of devices. So that's where we're really focused. And that's where, the BD guy especially is an elephant hunter. He wants to find the big game, and I'm all for it. So, but no, there's some interaction, because some legacy things, Viasat and some others. But for the most part, it's pretty broken out.
Great. So I know we're winding down on time here. Maybe time for one more. So for those who are considering submitting a reservation, what will this potential next round of funding enable AtomBeam to accomplish over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, good question. So it really comes down to what are the priorities of this company, and that's what we're spending the money on. It's ramping up revenue for Nerpac, and doing whatever we need to do to the fundamental code that makes it quick, easy to use, foolproof, reliable, all those things. And you have to support it. You have to have people who test it. You have to have people who are tech support. You got to have all the infrastructure stuff. So we pay for that. And then with respect to PCM, which is right now a relatively small part of our overall budget, that we need to keep it moving forward very smartly with, and it's not all centered around the Navy demo. There's also sort of like just building out the core thing, the core code itself. And we have a small team of really smart, mostly PhDs doing it, who are, really hammering on that point. I found, by the way, with software, that a few really great guys, really great developers, will beat, not as great bigger teams every time. And so I'm not it'd be great to put more resources into it, but we're not way under resourced with that. We need to get all the core pieces up, because like you're adding features to it, the core features. Does it work now? Yes. But can it do this better? Could it do that? And also could do this? Yes. And those are the things they're building right now.
Awesome. That's exciting stuff. Well, I think that about concludes our time. Charles, thank you so much for a fantastic discussion. And thank you everyone else who joined us today. As a reminder, AtomBeam is currently testing the waters for a potential next raise on Start Engine. If you'd like to learn more about submitting a non-binding reservation, you can visit their page at startengine.com/offering/AtomBeam. Again, no money is being accepted at this time, and a reservation simply indicates interest and helps you stay up to date and ask questions and be in the loop about AtomBeam. So on behalf of Start Engine and the AtomBeam team, thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Charles.
Yep. Thank you very much, Nathan. And thanks everybody for coming and listening. I always appreciate the opportunity. So, and feel free to follow up with any questions in the discussion section. Always happy to address those.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Have a good
day.
All
right. Thanks. Take care. Bye.